everybody, and welcome to my latest studio vlog. My name's Lee Foster Wilson and I'm an artist and illustrator from Cornwall in the UK. I haven't shown my face on here for my last couple of videos, so I thought I'd do a proper intro today and say hello. This last month has been quite a busy one on both a personal and work level, and as such I feel like time has sort of slowed down a little bit for me. It's not been quite so week to week and wondering where all the days have gone, which is a funny thing about time really, isn't it? I feel like when you fill your time with more things, your brain has more to process and time just seems to sort of expand. I don't know if that's because you're living less of your life on autopilot, perhaps, I don't know. I'm waffling now. I hope some of that makes sense. So yeah, there's been a couple of trips away. I went to a lovely wedding in Wiltshire and I also went to Bristol for a few nights with some friends, and we went to this amazing, immersive, wacky, psychedelic, thought-provoking art installation called Wake the Tiger, which I can totally recommend. I'll share some snippets of that later on. And we've also had half terms, so the children have been off school again, and we've had some nice days out. We had my cousin come to visit. So yeah, it's been pretty full on and busy, which is kind of how I like it. And then work-wise, I've been working on a lovely client collaboration, which I can't share yet, but I will do as soon as I can. And I've also been thinking about what I've been going to be doing with Bombay Forest and where to go next. And on a whim, I started on quite a special project that I've been working on for the last 2 weeks, kind of getting it ready and sorting that out. So yeah, watch on for more. And if you like what you see, please do like and subscribe. So I started the month with a bit of sketchbooking before I got stuck into my client work. I still have this abstract art itch to scratch, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. And knowing that I'd be creating lots of sweet illustrations in the coming weeks, I gave myself this time to keep myself in this vein of work as well. Though, as you can tell by the increasingly terrible lighting in this section of the vlog, the shorter days are starting to get the better of me when it comes to making work by natural light. I often find that I'm much more freely creative towards the mid to late afternoon, so I expect you'll be treated to more of this shadowy, tungsten-lit filming in the coming months, you lucky things. We can't really see it at this stage in the video, but just you wait. It gets much more orange and shadowy. Lighting aside, it was good to let loose here and let my mind play and wonder. I really enjoy this type of art making, and it gets me thinking deeper about what I'm trying to get across in all of my work, not just this abstract work, but my illustration and the ideas behind that as well. And my aim is to eventually change my studio around at some point and give myself a place, like a special space, to play with this sort of artwork on a larger scale as well, which I know I've mentioned it before, but yeah, I'm still building up to it. It will happen. I'm generally not one for resolutions, but creating that kind of space in my studio feels kind of achievable. So yeah, perhaps I should make it a resolution to get myself sorted out and get that done. So while I've been playing with this kind of abstract work, my mind has also been on Bombay Forest, my little business, and what I'm doing with it and where to take it next. As has been the same with many small businesses, this year has not been a blinder by any means, and it's been a lot tougher than usual, like a lot tougher. And I've been making and selling work online for a long time, as you'll know if you've watched my previous videos. It's been 16 years since I started selling online. And despite the advances of the internet, personally, I don't find that selling online has got any easier. Certain things have definitely helped in the past though, the advent of social media being one of them, and there was a real proper boom when that was easier to navigate and we weren't so much in the grasp of fickle algorithms. But it somehow seems harder now that social media and getting organic reach isn't as easy as it used to be, and blogs aren't as widely read. I know I'm not the only one who's had a harder than usual year, which makes me feel a bit better about it, to be honest, although I'd rather that everyone was having a great time rather than us all being in this boat. But I also know that the pandemic and the subsequent financial crisis hasn't helped at all, though the pandemic year was an anomaly and things were actually quite good that year when everyone just sat at home just buying stuff off the internet. But somehow I feel that there's more to these leaner times, especially when it comes to small creative businesses and online selling. Compared to how it used to be, the internet is an easier place to navigate now if you want to set up a shop with sites like Etsy, and you can have your own website fairly easily and with not too much expense with Squarespace and the like. You don't need someone with specific knowledge to build even a simple site anymore. I just wonder, as it has got easier, if the market is so very saturated now with so many more people selling things with lovely art on them, we're really just spoiled for choice. It's a lot easier to get your art published onto objects and items now, which is great for me because I realised a long time ago that the making for me isn't in the actual making of the object itself, but it's in the making of the art that is put onto the object. I tried the one woman sweatshop approach for many years and it lost its fun very quickly. So yeah, all of this has also got me wondering if there is an oversaturation of certain product types too. There was the enamel pin badge boom, and now there seems to be washi tape in everyone's shops, both of which I have also done well with too, of course. But there's definitely a need to be ahead of what was being produced before there are too many of them in the market. I feel like it's almost like there's product bandwagons that you need to be on at the right time to benefit from them. I'm really not complaining, by the way. I love that things are so easy to produce these days and that having an online shop to sell these beautiful things with art on is as accessible to anyone who wants to do it. It's fabulous to be able to take control like that and get your art out into the world. It's just that the current situation has got me thinking about it all and how I want to move forward with everything as it is. Especially as I get older, I wonder which trends I want to be chasing, if any at all. Anyway, continuing with my metaphors, I was very lucky enough to be able to ride the wave of popularity that the pin badges enjoyed for quite a while. People were collecting them all over the place, but their popularity has slowly declined again, and I guess knowing that the wave has broken, I also haven't had the impulse to design any new ones for quite some time. So the big decision I made recently was to not renew any sold out pin badges anymore, or design any new ones, which is quite a big thing for me really. I've been selling them online for 8 years plus, but at the same time, times change and it also feels like such a weight off that I don't have this niggling feeling that I should be designing new pins when I really don't want to anymore. Sometimes giving stuff up and letting go is the best thing, and this definitely feels like the way forward for me. It's such a relief. So now I've finally made that decision, I need to figure out what to bring to Bombay Forest next when they're all gone, and I haven't quite worked that out yet. I have lots of ideas percolating and different things are calling me. I hope I'll get more clarity on that in the coming weeks. There are a lot of options available, so yeah, we'll see where that goes. Anyway, it was fun to have this abstract and texture-based sketchbook playtime to do while I was mulling all that over, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it while I make those creative business decisions. As always, I like aspects of this, and there are definitely things I can take forward from it when I get around to making those bigger pieces that I keep threatening to do. You'll see them soon, I'm sure. So talking about thinking about what to do next, I've been wondering what to do with all of these birds that I've been making other than just producing cards and prints, and a couple of weeks ago I decided on a whim that I'd like to make a calendar. The problem is that at this point when I made this decision I only had 8 birds to work with, so I needed to get on with more because I think the window for selling calendars is closing pretty fast. Thankfully, I had my list of birds to draw from, and next up was this little great tit. The drawing was also partially inspired by one that flew into the window of my studio last month, the poor little thing. In fact, 2 have done it. The first was a little chiff-chaff. It was a bit stunned from hitting the glass, so I cradled it, and after a couple of minutes in my hands, it was done with me peering at it, and it fluffed its wings and flew away. And the second poor little bird that crashed into my window was this lovely little great tit. And as you can see, he could have just sat on my hand for ages. It was really, really quite lovely. And it seemed to get over its window hitting shock fairly quickly, but then it just wouldn't leave. It just sat there on my hand. And it was a real privilege having it there, really, but I was quite busy and I needed both hands. So after a few minutes, I ended up gently prizing it off and sitting it in the hebe bush. It didn't actually leave the hebe for another 15 minutes or so until I went out and checked on it for probably the 3rd time, and then it just flew off across the garden. I was so happy to see it go. I've been so worried about it that it might just kind of keel over or something, but it seemed pretty happy enough. So yeah, this drawing was inspired by that encounter, and of course I had to sit him in a hebe bush for the purposes of the picture. And then after the Chiff-Chaff rescue, I also had to draw a Chiff-Chaff. He didn't go quite to plan on the first attempt, as you can see, but I liked the bird that I'd drawn. So it wasn't the bird that hadn't gone quite to plan, it was all the rest of it. So yeah, I cut him out to use on a fresh attempt at the flowers. I drew the original ones far too small, which made the Chiff-Chaff look way bigger than he actually is, and they're actually really tiny birds, which I hadn't realised until I'd had one in the palm of my hand. The florals worked much better on the second attempt, and it was interesting putting the background in after I'd completed everything, as normally I would paint the background first and then paint over it. But when I'd practiced drawing these flowers in my sketchbook, I really liked the luminosity and translucence of the colour that I was using for the flowers on the white background. And I think if I'd painted over the peach with those colours, they just would have seemed a bit dull and not as vibrant against that peachy colour. After I finished the chaffinch, I just had 2 more to do to complete the 12 for the calendar. And by this time, because I knew I was making the birds with the calendar in mind, I'd started to let myself and the flower choices I was making be slightly governed by the months of the year and the spaces that I still needed to fill. So yeah, here's my list. It changed a couple of times, and even in the second incarnation here, I ended up changing things around again because I wanted to draw the swallow that you're about to see in blossoms, and so it couldn't possibly stay in June. And here are the final 2 birds. And the goldfinch I drew flying amongst them white asters, and here's the swallow too, who I also drew flying, this time darting between those branches of blossom that I wanted to include. I'm glad I included a couple of the birds flying, as I realised that until now I'd only really drawn them sitting or standing, which I think made the collection a little bit static. And I think the addition of the flying birds brings a bit more like dynamism and movement to the collection, because it is what birds are known for, really, isn't it? Yeah, they're flying creatures, birds on the wing, rather than just always sitting on branches or standing on the ground. After I'd finished all the drawing, then came the designing part of the calendar, and I didn't actually get any footage of me working out the days of the month layout. It took quite a lot of concentration and double and triple checking that I had all of the dates correctly, and because I'm a sucker for punishment, I added the moon phases too, so something else to worry about and double and triple check to make sure I got it right. I used Procreate on my iPad to lift sections of the florals and decorate the months and pretty them all up a little bit. The lasso tool, which is I think what they call it in Procreate, they call it that in Photoshop, and it essentially does the same thing. So it outlines little sections, and then you can copy and paste those elements that you've outlined and to create new ones. I like taking little bits and flipping them and layering them and adding new leaves, that sort of thing, just to create new motifs and new elements. I just love making these sorts of decorations. It's a really satisfying job and so effective. And so then once I'd done that, it was just a case of checking everything again to make sure that I had actually got it all right, and getting it all ready as a print-ready PDF. And now it is at the printers as I speak, and I have a pre-order open on my website if you might be interested in getting one for somebody, maybe for Christmas. The pre-orders have gone well so far, and yeah, I can't wait to see the calendar made real in all of its papery goodness, ready to send out to my customers next week. I'm loving having all of these birds on my studio wall too. It's just really fun watching the collection grow like this and having them all together. I'm still going to be making them too. I'm not stopping at just the 12 for the calendar, because it's my ambition to draw all of the birds that I've seen in my garden, and there are a lot more to do. And yeah, now that I've started looking at them closer, I've noticed that there are a lot more varieties, or breeds, is that the word for it? A lot more of them anyway than I thought there were, other than just the usual great tits and sparrows and blue tits. Yeah, there's lots of different types to get my pens around. So here we are, and as promised, here are some bits of the Wake the Tiger, they call it an amazement park, that I went to in Bristol a couple of weeks ago, and it's really well worth a visit if you're in that area. It was really immersive and a lot of fun.
You're not lost, you're found.
That's where we were before we went left and went into the Bristol bit.
I hope you've enjoyed this latest vlog, and if you have, please do like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.